So the DREADBLOON is back for round 2, and this time we're taking it on in Frozen Over. It's another pretty easy map, it's not too much harder than the first one. This time there is water, so if you want to use a water-based tower, that's completely viable now. There's also the caveman monkey if you ever want to get funny with it. But if you've seen my first video taking on the DREADBLOON, then you'll know I'm going to use a pretty similar tactic here. This is not the elite version. I will try taking on the elite. I don't know if I'll be able to beat it, but I'll try it at some point. Nonetheless, this is still a boss balloon, and it can still be very difficult to take on. Now, because this is a boss balloon, we are going to want to farm as early as we can. We try to find some relatively cheap towers that you can place as your defense while you just get as much money as you can. For this map, there's a lot of loops on it, so I decided I'm just going to go for a tack shooter. Nice and simple, love myself some tack shooters, and we can use it to go up against the DREADBLOON, so I feel like I'm saving money on two fronts here. I also went for top path banana farms this time. Last time I did bottom path, but I was feeling a little different today. And because I didn't feel like always moving my mouse around, I built them in one spot and then just went with druids for the rest of my cash income. Could definitely farm more, but it's not the elite version, not too hard pressed for cash on the normal, so just going with this. But in case this is your first time seeing the DREADBLOON, there is a gimmick to this boss. You see, Bloonarius is just a damage sponge, the Lich would drain your health and was really quick, the Vortex is just really annoying, and this one is pretty different from all of them. The DREADBLOON comes out and it'll be covered in rocks, and it'll say that has an immunity to a certain type of tower. So it'll start by being immune to primary tower damage, and then that means you'll have to build other types of towers to be able to take this balloon down. And then every time it reaches the next damage phase, it'll change which damage type it's immune to. I believe it goes primary, military, magic, and then support to end it. Well, on top of having immunity to certain types of damages, I believe it also changes some of the waves to make more fortified balloons, on top of adding rock balloons into its waves. These rock balloons are a bit tougher to take down. I believe they have properties of Moab balloons, so you can take them down a bit easier with stuff like a Moab Mauler. One thing you'll very quickly find while fighting a DREADBLOON is that you get pierce capped really easily. Now that's pretty typical for just about any boss balloon, but especially with the DREADBLOON and its rock balloons that it adds, you're going to get pierce capped and it's going to hurt you a lot. So you're going to have to make sure you're building towers that can get around this, whether that's just building towers further back to help with any leaking, or towers that have really high amounts of pierce caps like a Juggernaut. Now for the actual strategy of taking out a DREADBLOON, I'm a big fan of primary monkeys when it comes to trying to grind cash, just because they're very effective for how cheap they are. And of course it does depend on the map. Primary monkeys won't always be the go-to, but for this map it works pretty well because tack shooters have a lot of very good places they can go. Any loops are just overall extremely beneficial for a tack shooter. Now, heroes are completely subjective based on how you like to approach things. I use Azili just because it's one of the few heroes I actually have, but also because she has camo popping along with lead popping really early on. So I can save a little bit more money on the lead popping side of things. Now for my tack shooter, I usually don't keep them out during boss fights, but for this one I decided it's going to just be a main component of my towers. And as such, it will stay there the whole game, and for boss balloons, I typically really like a tack zone. When the boss balloons are on top of it, it's getting hit with every tack, it's just so much damage, it's great. So you'll see I get up to an overdrive relatively early, it'll carry me through the first wave of the DREADBLOONs and every other wave just in between, and then I try to get a tack zone pretty quick after that. And it's also very good to buff up your tack zone, so getting stuff like primary expertise and all that with a village helps tremendously with doing more damage. So for the first DREADBLOON wave, I went with a sticky bomb and an overdrive, and that was basically it. And for wave 2, I got a tack zone along with a sticky bomb, and then I just threw in like an Operation Dartstorm for fun. You can also see I went with the Juggernaut / Ultra Juggernaut Dart Monkey just to help me kind of with the leads and fortified balloons. It's not because he's like excellent in this case, I was just already buffing my tack zone, and I don't know, I'm a big fan of the Juggernaut, so. Now, as is typical with boss balloons, once you start getting to like wave 3 of them, they get a lot stronger. At this point, Sticky Bomb isn't as useful, but if you want to go with the Sticky Bomb, that's still completely fine, but because this is later into the game, we can go for more expensive towers. And I think number 1 is always the Mad. It's just insanely strong for any boss or Moabs. I also decided to try Sentry Champion just because I mentioned it in the last video, and it did a lot worse than I thought it would, so I don't know if it was worth it. But at this point, I just have an excess amount of cash. The map is easy enough. I don't really need to build a lot of towers or delete many towers, so I just kept the mat around and kept going from there. I did sell the Sentry Champion because, like I said, I thought it was underwhelming, didn't want it. I got a Glaive Lord instead. But not only a Glaive Lord, I got all the Boomerang tier 5s because now I'm setting up for a Paragon. I'm thinking for the last wave of DREADBLOON, I'll have a Boomerang Paragon to help out. So you'll see I have all the Boomerang tier 5s, and I place a bunch of Boomerangs and upgrade them to like top path, bottom path by 2, just to help get some XP onto the Paragon. I decided to try to go for a Wizard Lord Phoenix to see how strong that was, and it's a surprisingly very powerful tower. I like it a lot. Or maybe not that surprising, it's very expensive, but it's a fun tower to mess with. Another key component to this is getting a homeland defense with your village. Very strong. Anytime that's up, you're pretty much doing like double damage, I think, something around that. Then for the last wave of the DREADBLOON, I just spam a bunch of random towers I think are fun. It's not the elite version, so it doesn't have a crazy amount of health, so I don't need to try and save up and get a bunch of money for Paragon. The map is pretty long. There's a lot of leniency here still. So I just mainly get the Boomerang Paragon and then start spamming a bunch of alchemists and stuff around just to help out. But if you do want some highlights for tier 5s you can use for DREADBLOON in case you're struggling, I'll give you a couple. An Avatar of Wrath is always an incredible option. If you put 5 pop lusts around it, you get max power, it goes crazy. A bottom path Super Monkey is also crazy strong, but that's a lot of XP to even get the tier 5, so it's completely understandable if you don't have it. Like, I don't even have it myself still. Of course, the Tack Zone and the Mad, they're incredible options. Sticky Bomb and the tier 5 version are also incredible options. They will always just do very solid damage no matter what. Top and bottom path planes are also really good because they shoot so many projectiles. You can think of the top path like a flying Tack Zone almost. And some more supportive ones that are insanely strong are a middle path tier 5 village, middle path tier 5 engineer, even tier 4 is fine, just overclocking in general. Top path alchemist is always really good. Even a tier 4 middle path village is really strong, just having homeland defense up and then having the tier 4 version, you're gonna do good things. I used to sleep on buffs a lot, but after messing around with the game a little bit more, buffing is insanely strong for any kind of strategy you want to come up with. Of course, there's so many different monkeys and upgrades you can do, so whatever I say, you can still mix and match with so many different things, it doesn't even matter. Anybody can come up with any kind of strategy they want, really. But for me, that's how I took down the DREADBLOON once again. If you want to add anything, throw it in the comments, leave a like, whatever you want. Subscribe if you want to see more. But before I go, this is my 19th daily upload up until Christmas, so there's only about 6 days remaining. As such, I've been working on a little collage to commemorate every day, and I'll have that play in the background to sign us out. So, take care everyone. Bye bye.